We are back at it live and direct, man. Good Taste Bad Grammar coming at you today from Zoom. I'm with my guy, Rod Carter, man. How you living, bro?
What up, man? Can't call it, man. Chilling.
Man, bro, it's good to be back, man. Today, as always, we got another super dope episode. And this one, we are joined by a legend, if I must say so myself. We're going to have the legendary Charlotte Hornet Muggsy Bogues on. But before we get into everything, Muggsy, before we give you a proper introduction, we want to introduce a segment that we've been doing so far this season called Good Taste. It gives our audience a chance to get to know you a little bit better. And really, too, just to kind of see like where your mind is before the episode. So we got some quick questions for you. And this is how we're going to start Good Taste. So the first Good Taste question that we have for you, since you were a part of the 90s in the NBA culture, give us 5 good jerseys that you really liked. Obviously, the Charlotte Hornets had some of the best threads in the league, but what were 5 good jerseys that you liked in the 90s?
In the 90s, 5 good jerseys. Well, I'm going to pick all the ones, at least 3 of the teams I was on. The Hornets, the Golden State, the Raptors. I go with New York and Dallas.
That makes sense. Those definitely some good jerseys. And when we thought of the question, we was like, honestly, his teams are some of the best, especially from the 90s. Especially that Hornets and the Raptors. Like, yeah, and then like you said, the Golden State as well. So
I can't forget about the first one, the Bullets. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's a hometown team with that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's where it all started.
All right, so the second Good Taste question: 5 young players in the NBA that you currently like to watch.
Well, Steph is at the front of it. Steph Curry. I always seeing him playing. Of course, CP, love CP. Seeing him doing his thing out there. The young fellas now, of course, LeBron and the KD and AD and Harden and all those guys. Everybody loves to see them. But the young guys that's coming up. LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
Right now that's playing, that's bringing some excitement. Young Bridges, Miles, I'm loving seeing what he's doing. And the kid Saxon, as well as, up in Cleveland. So those guys, Fox up in Sacramento. So the young guys, I want to give love to Trae Young down there in Atlanta, who's doing this thing. So a lot of the young up and coming, so I want to give them some love. But that's where the lead is going. It's growing, and you need these guys that's coming up, upcoming stars, because eventually our big guy is going to be venturing out here sooner. Is probably a little later, because it seems like the older he get, the more finer he's become. Meaning than LeBron.
Yeah, man, I knew exactly what he was talking about.
To your point, Muggsy, as far as the players that you like, man, and it's heavy at the guard position right now in the NBA. So a lot of talent at the guard position, as you stated. So going into the next one, the next Good Taste question that we have for you, 5 players that you enjoyed to compete against when you were playing.
Well, it's always at my position. Of course, GP. Gary Payton was one that always loved the glove, always like to bring the best out of you. Now I love playing against John Stockton. The Isaiah Thomas, the Zeke Isaiah Thomas, not my young fella IT, playing against guys like that. Of course, the J.K., the Penny Hardaways, love playing against my man, Spud Webb. I love playing against my young Spud. So there's a lot of guys. I guess I gave you 5. So, but it's more Tim Hardaway. I keep on going, Mark Jackson. There's so many of them out there.
Most definitely. And to round us off on the last Good Taste segment question, 5 songs that you used to listen to in your pregame warm-up or your pregame ritual. What was your warm-up songs?
It didn't, back then we didn't have the headphones. I didn't have the headphones on. So you probably in the locker room listen to, and for me, always, I was a Q-tip, Crock Quest. If they was my guys, got my Muggsy Bogues in their song. So I had to Tribe Called Quest. I had to give them some love, reaching out. And, of course, Marvin Gaye. Marv was the guy that we all kind of mellowed out to get ready to listen to. And of course, Prince back then was pretty popular for love, and everybody had that in their playlist. Go along with from of course Biggie and Tupac. Had to add them 2 in there, because that's something that get you bop and get you going. And they get you ready. Jay was just coming in the scene though. Jay was just really coming up and
okay. That makes sense.
So Jay was there, but it was Biggie, Tupac, go back with, those guys and Tribe Called Quest, like I said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a heck of a list. There's definitely some soulful artists. Got a little bit of rap on there. But man, Muggsy, we appreciate you knocking that out for us. Like we said, that was the good taste segment that we have. It's been super successful so far, and there was some good opportunities to get to know you a little bit better. But like I said, giving you a proper introduction, everybody, today we are joined by Muggsy Bogues, one of the greatest Charlotte Hornets of all time, 14 years in the NBA, Charlotte Hornets all-time leader in assists, top 25 in all-time assists in the NBA, all-time. I don't know if y'all heard me. That's all-time top 25. First-round draft pick, gold medalist, and has his number 14 jersey retired at Wake Forest University. Muggsy, speak to the people and introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? Hey, you did all. I mean, how much did I pay you to do that? I mean, it cost me quite a bit. You just did it all. Introduce, appreciate that love. Bring me in.
Most definitely. Thank you for coming on and joining us here on Good Taste Bad Grammar. So to get us kind of kicked off, Muggsy, we know you're from Baltimore, Maryland. So give us kind of a backstory of growing up in Baltimore and what your childhood was like coming up in Baltimore.
Well, growing up in the city of Baltimore, of course, it was challenging. Early on at my age of 5 years old, unfortunately for me, I got shot. Being outside in a place where I had no business being, snuck outside, mom and them not even knowing I was out there. But, trying to pursue, I think that right there, once overcoming that, I think it did something to my mindset. It really gave me an opportunity to really didn't care about what anybody thought or what they said about how short I was, or the little short strokes they was trying to, throw at me because I was trying to start to take interest in the game of basketball. And but it was I wanted to be like any other kid. Everybody was out there playing, hooping, trying to gain a reputation for themselves, I should say. And it was also a means for an opportunity, an avenue for me as to get out, to go to, get a proper education. And hopefully, one day, change the narrative of your family. But, right there, I was just trying to be that guy. And fortunate enough for me, I had some good guys growing up with. The late Reggie Lewis, may he rest in peace. David Wingate and Reggie Williams. Fortunate enough, we was all on the same high school team together. That we was able to assemble that. They say one of the best teams ever assembled. With the Baltimore boys. Being able to go undefeated my 2 years that I was there.
Yeah, so you alluded to it, but definitely talk about that team and that experience playing ball in high school. I know I played football in high school, but the high school, the bus rides and just the team and getting to know yourself and getting to know your brothers. Talk about growing up and then being one of the best high school teams of all time, as many people like to say.
That was so much fun because that's where it all started. At that time, you kids and you just got that adrenaline that you want to be the best. Because as we grew up, we was playing against each other. Neighborhoods against neighborhoods. Lafayette against Cecil Kirk and Madison and all that sort of thing. Then here all of a sudden, now you guys on the same team, fighting for the same common goal. And here it is, we traveling. A team like us, we was traveling. We going to Kentucky, going to New York, and going out to Pennsylvania to take on who was considered the best out there. And it has, we had egos. We had egos as we travel around and here it is, we say we're going to New York, we want to be the best. We're going to play the New York kids. So that mentality. And then being able to, prevail and then being, at the last team standing, that was great. Doing it with your guys that you grew up with, building on that bond. Unfortunately for us, we lost one too early, and Reggie Lewis. And because we all fortunate enough, we was able to make history together. And I know y'all probably get into that in the NBA segment, but, by us, three of us, me, myself, and the late Reggie Lewis and Reggie Williams getting drafted in the first round, in 87 together. So that was special.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah, Muggsy, with that, one thing, listening to your comment to answer that question, you said, obviously, you guys were a competitive team. Some say the best team of all time, but when you start winning games, especially in high school, like you do start feeling yourself. Like you said, you guys had 4 guys made to NBA, so egos. How did Bob Wade manage it all? Like people say, he's one of the greatest coaches, but also just one of the greatest men to be able to, really bring you guys up and develop you guys not only as basketball players, but young men as well. So what was that like playing for him, and how did he do it all?
Well, he was the key. He was the key behind it all because, as you just alluded to, not only just us 4, we had a whole team full of good players. I believe we was considered the number 1 team in the nation, but I think our second 5 was the number team in the country. I mean, and that included Reggie Lewis coming off the bench, a part of that second team. We had 11 guys was fortunate enough to go to a Division I school, and but Coach understood who we were, where we came from and what we all needed. Everybody had their own personality. Everybody needed to be treated totally differently. And everybody needed something totally different. A lot of us didn't have fathers in our household, and being able to have that father figure, that mentor who's been there and done it as a professional athlete. The coach was a professional athlete, playing in the football with the Pittsburgh and the Colts and all that, and then coming back and take on the responsibility to mentor kids in this neighborhood and to get them to understand how to check their egos at the door and then come in for one common goal, that was the win. And we was fortunate that we was able to do that. And, that's our guy today. He's just like a father. He's like a father figure for me anyway, and for most of the guys. And that's what Coach did, not only for me, for many other guys that came through that program, because that's what he instilled. He started us to understand to be a student athlete, because at the time early on, back in those days, the terminology dumb jocks was floating around so much.
Shout out to Dunbar High School and Muggsy. I want to move on kind of not too far, but just a little bit to kind of talk about how you got your nickname. How'd you get the nickname?
Well, it started coming back, of course, growing up in the inner city of Baltimore, and as kids, you're going to develop some kind of nickname. You're trying to make a name for yourself. And for me, my Tyrone is my name. Mama named me Ty. And playing the game and stealing the ball. And, the guy said, gosh, she's mugging everybody. Then it was a show on at the time called the Bowery Boys. And one of the characters was named Muggsy. He was like the little leader of his little crew. For some odd reason, they always, we always had a crew, back in my neighborhood, we was 5 deep, 6 deep. Yeah. We always traveled together, and they always saw me as the leader of that little crew. So mugging and between that Bowery Boys, and all of a sudden they try to put it together. And one day the guy called me and said, man, you act like Muggsy. That's Muggsy out there. And of course, I didn't like it. I thought they were talking about the mug and everything because, you're a kid and all that. But it grew on me, man. And 7, 8 years old, I've been Muggsy ever since. And like I said, many people don't even know my name is Tyrone.
Yeah. That's crazy how like things just stick with it, isn't it? Like, growing up, it's just crazy. And obviously, like you playing basketball, I'm curious to know, like, where do you think your nickname ranks? Because, it's some great ones in the NBA. You got Magic, you got the Glove.
Iceman.
Yeah, Iceman. George Gervin, man, the King and LeBron. So, like, what are some of your favorite nicknames from the NBA? And then where do you think, like, yours ranks?
Well, I mean, I'm quite sure I'm up there in some regards to a lot of some folks, but for me, I have, you had Fast Eddie, you got to remember Fast Eddie. Then you had, like I said, you got the Duro Chocolate, the Chocolate Thunder. Yeah, Chocolate Thunder was back, and then we had my man Moses when they had the posters with him up there, doing this thing. So there's so many great names back in the day, man. It was, it was unreal. We had Sugar. You had Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Richardson out there playing. Had so many. The Doctor. Lost the human highlight in Dominique. So then you go down. They call the Brews the Bad Boys. They call the Brews, but Jeff Rulin and Rick Mahorn. So there's so many nicknames that was out there, man. Rain Man, Sean Kemp, so keep on going with it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And obviously, you got grandmama too down in the city.
And then that's what I was a great say. Then you have my young fella, my big fella, grandmama, and LJ, So, and then of course, can't forget the airness, MJ.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So kind of pushing forward and moving on, Muggsy, I wanted to ask you, Baltimore is definitely one of the blackest cities in America, and definitely the time that you were growing up in it. But you made the trip on down to what we like to call the Hoop State. Came on down to the Hoop State and went to Wake Forest. Wake Forest is definitely known for, the likeness of yourself. Big Fundamental. I mean, another nickname, Big Fundamental and Tim Duncan. And the point guard, in CP3, a couple nicknames and a couple legendary players. So talk about kind of the decision to come on down to Wake Forest. I know you had the eyes of, all across, like you said, the high school team spoke for itself and the record spoke for itself and the talent was there. But talk about the decision to come to Wake Forest.
Well, the reason I decided to go to Wake because I knew the challenge that it was going to, that it prevailed for me, it led for me in terms on and off the court. I know if it didn't work out basketball-wise, then academically it would be a situation where if I got my degree from Wake Forest University, then I can go ahead and do something positive, with me and hopefully change the narrative for my family. And that was my thought process, and then also being one of the toughest conferences at the time in the country, the ACC, with the likeness of the Michael Jordan, the Lenny Bias, and the Mark Price, and the John Sallies, and you go down Duke to Johnny Dawkins and the Tommy Amicus, and then, the State, Spud Webb, Ernie Mize, so list goes on and on. Then you had the coaches, the Dean Smith, the Valvano, the Mike Sessions, the Lenny Drysdale. So, I mean, it was an opportunity when my mom didn't have to travel. She could just turn her tube on every Saturday, watch our baby play. And in this situation, Danny Young was a senior, and I knew he would be moving on and having that 1 year of experience and being able to understand what that conference and that everything was all about. I think it would be beneficial for me. So that's one of the reasons I made that decision. It was a culture shock when I got down there, during my visit. But I knew that eventually, if I can prevail here, I can prevail anywhere. And knowing me and the type of person that I was, I needed that challenge, coming from Wake and coming from Baltimore and coming from, where, what I was faced with. I wanted something different. And I think that was something different that I needed. Georgetown was right there where my boys went to, and Wingate and Reggie Williams and Coach Thompson, he did offer, and for me to come, but, Michael Jackson was only a sophomore there and he had 2 years there. And, so I didn't want to have to go and hustle and bustle with that situation. And that was one of the reasons I didn't go to Georgetown, because Reggie Williams and myself, we played our entire young childhood together.
Up through high school.
All the way up through high school, from the ranks from 12, 11, 10, 11 all the way up until we had to part to go to college. So that was a different decision, but I knew it was the best decision for me.
Yeah, most definitely. You talked about kind of that culture shock. Me and Brad laughed about it, but CP3 talks about how he found himself on Winston-Salem State's campus and over at A&T. Did you ever find yourself on the yard one of the nights or something like that?
Oh, absolutely. What you talking about? It's just every weekend that we over there. That was, and I had my boys over there too. Of course, that was our outlet. That's where we went and get and kind of had the balance of the two. And not only that, you had UNCG down there, Bennett, as well as all those other little schools, St. Aug and Central. Weren't too far as we saw it, but that was the beauty of North Carolina. The schools that were surrounded by around us, and for me, us being Wake Forest, being up there, not down there with Duke and Carolina was, and that because we was more up to where, HBC was right there, Winston-Salem State, but a big time university in Wake Forest was there too. And I thought that was something that was intriguing for me, knowing that here it is, I had the best of both worlds. It was small, it wasn't a big, wasn't a lot of attention. You can kind of, go by your own means. And for me, that's who I was. I wasn't so outlandish and all that, even though we came from being, high profile in terms of program, but as an individual. I just wanted to be able to go in and do what I was able to do and do it to the level to where, it wasn't much attention, forced in your way.
For sure. Hey, and I say this, it's definitely hard not to go down to A&T. Me and Rob, we always going to be a little biased. But yeah, that's dope, man, that you got to have that experience while you were in college. And one thing, too, I want to ask about your experience at Wake Forest. So last year, when 2020 started, obviously this whole quarantine and COVID that has hit the entire world, it really it shook everything, especially in the sports world. So there was no March Madness. And that's an experience that college players, they dream their whole life to just make it to the tournament, because out of all the different playoffs, whether you are a football fan, baseball, I personally think March Madness is the best one because everyone has a shot. It's a Cinderella story every year. So what was that experience like when Wake Forest, you guys made it to the tournament? And, how was that, to have a season? Obviously, you coming from a high school with a winning background and say like, I'm on a team and, we having a little bit of success.
I mean, it was the ultimate. I mean, for me, like I said, when I left Dunbar, and my first 11 games with Wake Forest, and we was undefeated when it was a game. So, I was like 70-0. I felt like, well, this is what it's going to be like. And then all of a sudden you start to get that wake-up call knowing that, hey, boy, there's a lot of talented teams out here and that it ain't going to be like this every night. And then getting that experience, going as far as we did in the Elite Eight, playing against the 5 Slam Pajamas, losing to them. But I had an opportunity to play, retired Ray Myers, who was coach at DePaul at the time. They had a tough team with Kenny Patterson and No Boys. So being able to go through those guys and be successful and then get to, Clyde, to get to Akeem, Elijah, one of those guys, and had an opportunity of winning that game. Mm-hmm. Came so close to winning, and here it is, the next game in the Final Four, we would have faced Virginia. And we felt like we had Virginia number that year, and with Ralph Sampson, those guys. But like I said, it was a great experience, and ain't nothing like March Madness. The adrenaline is at its all-time high, and every kid, who get that experience and get that opportunity should relish it, because it's nothing that's guaranteed that you're going to be there each and every year.
Yeah, most definitely. You talked about kind of the talent in the tournament that year, and then in the ACC period. But in your senior season, you were actually able to accomplish the great accomplishment of going all ACC. So talk about kind of the basketball level, and even though the competition level was high, like talk about how you kind of navigated the game at Wake Forest and, how y'all played as a team as far as hooping period.
Yeah, and they cheated me my senior year. I should have got player of the year. They gave the punk Horace Grant too. So I always let them know about that, because we beat them in a tournament too.
That should have took it over.
yeah, that should have solidified that right there after them being up by 18. And we down in the second half, and you only got 20 minutes at halftime. We changed things around, and we was able to turn things around and take on them guys. But it was, that's what it was about, trying to get to that next level. For me, anyway, the team-wise, we wasn't as successful as we was my first couple years, my first year. So we had a coaching change. Players left. Kenny Green decided to go hardship. And also things. So that changed the dynamic of the team. We had a lot of young players. Myself and Mark Klein was pretty much the older guy that was there. So, Coach Stack, he really just handed the ball to me, little fella, go ahead and do your thing and get us to, do as much as you can to help us try to win basketball game that day. So it put me in a good situation where it woke a lot of the NBA scouts up to really start to notice that, hey, this kid might be for real.
And play some basketball, most definitely.
And Muggsy, too, I want to ask you, so obviously you had a very storied career at Wake Forest, was able to make all ACC, and even too, like throughout your college experience, you got to go play on the national team to go get a gold medal. But now when you go back, like obviously now you're a retired basketball player, and just reflecting on your career, when you go back to Winston-Salem, what is it like to see your jersey up in the rafters and see that number 14 hanging up there?
It's a great honor. It's a humbling feeling, knowing that the time that you was there, you accomplished, some accolades that you didn't really set forth, but, as in terms of night in and night out, you was able to put some things together to it. don't want to hang your jersey in the rafter. So, for me, I'm just thankful that, that they thought of me in that light to put my jersey up there. It's nothing more than that you can, kind of accept, just be humble, to accept that type of honor.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and another thing too that we want to ask you, obviously, I just kind of alluded to it, playing on the national team, getting to go to Spain, and help Team USA win the gold medal. What was that experience like? Because for those that do not know, 1992 was the first time they had allowed NBA players to play. So before that, it was just college players. What was that experience like, being able to do that before ultimately making the dream turn to reality, playing the NBA? What was it like to represent your country?
Yeah, we was the last collegiate team that won that gold medal. So just for everybody out there to know that. In '86, myself, David Robinson, Kenny Smith, Dirk McKee, Sean Elliott, Steve Kerr, Tom, man, we had a lot of guys on that team that was in the '87 draft too. Ahmed Gilliam, that represented that '86 team. Won, and I get back then it was the USSR, Russia. So, playing against some of the greatest players, Drazen Petrovic, he was with Yugoslavia before, may rest in peace, before he came to the NBA. Oscar Smith, who played with Brazil over there, and then ultimately playing against Sabonis. Sabonis, the biggest star at the time, was a Michael Jordan. Bringing that gold medal home was the greatest. Knowing that here it is, we young college kids supposed to be playing against pros, but here it is, we was able to go out there and accomplish that goal and win it. For me, putting that gold medal around my neck, standing there on that podium holding that cup, that was the ultimate.
That's beautiful. That's definitely, like I said, as far as an achievement that it's like no other, because, it's only so many people that can make that team. Obviously now, you see the trials when they're out in Vegas and everybody practicing. So it's amazing that you had that experience. But as we continue to, segue and get ready to switch gears, 1987. Some people regard this as one of the greatest NBA drafts of all time. That draft class included the great David Robinson, Horace Grant, Reggie Miller, Scottie Pippen, Mark Jackson, and also the great Kevin Johnson. But there was a little guy from Wake Forest that went 12th overall, man. What was that like, making it to the NBA ultimate dream, being selected by the Baltimore Bullets, the Washington Bullets at the time, hometown team. What was that like?
Well, that night was, the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders, hearing your name called and knowing that, hey, it finally has arrived. You're about to go up there and do it just like all the big guys that are about to do it. Shake the Commissioner Stern hand, may he rest in peace, put your hat on and have that feeling. That was something that, not many small guys get that opportunity. For me to get an opportunity like that, to get the experience, it's nothing other. It's nothing other. Like I said, it was a narrative, changed the whole narrative of my family. Being able to celebrate not only with some of my friends, but my boys that I grew up with, my Reggie Williams and Reggie Lewis, may rest in peace. Here it is as kids dreaming. And then here it is, we all going in the same draft together, the first round, which was history being made. There was nothing like it, then going home to celebrate, having the town on fire. So it was ultimate. It was ultimate knowing that we was able to, accomplish that. And then, as you mentioned, all the guys, Kevin Johnson, Kenny Smith, Reggie Williams went third. Ahmed Gilliam went second. Reggie Miller went 11. Of course, I went right after him.
Yeah.
Horace Grant, was in that draft as well.
Yeah.
So it was so many guys, man. Tellus Frank, keep on going down the line. Cadillac Anderson.
And also too, when you think about it, we've been talking about your upbringing in Baltimore. To think about making it to the NBA, that's already a very strong odd to beat. But to say that you made it to the NBA with your friends, childhood friends, same public high school, same neighborhood, man, that's incredible. Do you guys still reflect on like, yo, we really like we made this happen? Like, what is that when you sit back and just reimagine like all of that? Like, dang, this really happened. What is that for you?
Well, it's an awesome, reminisce conversation that take place, and of course, the Baltimore Dunbar documentary really gave us a real true opportunity to go back and tell it all. Again, it was just sad that we didn't have our guy there with us, Reg. We just didn't have him there. It would have made it that much special because, even though David Wingate went a year ahead of us, the four of us, but the three of us, and, we went in there together, and that would have been special. And then having all the other guys sharing it with us as well, who was behind the scene, part of that. That's good times, knowing that childhood guys that you kind of went to war with, was able to have a dream in their head, and they was able to fulfill it, and they pushed each other, to that regard. And, with that being said, ain't nothing like that having, your childhood friends reach the pinnacle the same as you was able to do it.
Yeah, most definitely. I definitely think that's amazing that you got to experience that with your childhood friends. But kind of shifting back to the draft, and I guess it still includes them, but the 1987 draft class is considered by some one of the best draft classes of all time. So we wanted to ask you, I know people talk about the 2003 draft class with LeBron and Melo and D Wade, but, where do you kind of rank the 87 draft class as far as classes? I mean, where do you see it as far as if you had an 87 team, what do you think y'all will hold up?
Well, they, not only the 87, they also talk about, that 84, that Jordan draft with Clyde, with MJ and Barkley and all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But us, like I said, we stack up right up there with all them guys. I mean, a lot of us played, 14, 10 years plus as well. And you got some Hall of Famers in there. And that mixes too. So, I mean, I don't know, man. For me, I'll take us any day. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I definitely like the energy. I like that. Yeah. But now, for those who don't know, Muggsy, made history by being drafted as the shortest player ever to play in the NBA, at the time before it was Spud Webb. But Muggsy took that throne and took it and ran with it and gave the NBA buckets and picked a lot of pockets in the NBA. So we wanted to, I know we talked about, your favorite players to play against. But I know I had a question. You can look at a couple highlights. You can see a couple times where, you stacked up against that MJ guy you talked about, and you picked his pocket. So talk about the game and talk about, I guess, playing against Michael Jordan, and who would you consider the GOAT if you had to say a GOAT?
Well, yeah, they always talk about that GOAT. Just the first answer to the first part of the question was, it was a joy playing against Mike. And of course, he and I, we never matched up as per se. We always found ourselves on each other because he was a two guard, I was a point guard.
Right.
And but you always kind of get mixed up, switch and so forth. And when those times occur, and of course, we're having fun with it. For me, I'm competitive. Defensively, it's going to be tough to score, regardless of who it is. And those are the things that I'm always talking to them about when we going up against it. And of course, you saw when I slapped the ball down and they called some kind of defensive 3 seconds, but again, it was good D.
Yeah, I saw a good defense. That's what I saw.
It was good D. Then you get to pick with MJ, man. He's no other. He's no other. Like I said, everybody talk. They want to compare the LeBron and Kobe, and MJ's he just that electrifying player that had no type of deficiencies in his game. From free throw defensively, 9-time defensive champion, player of the world, to the 6th NBA, champion, to the scoring titles and et cetera, et cetera. But when it's time to compare, they all pretty much, got the same key to the elevator, I'm sure. So, trying to get up there and see what's everybody doing and going in the same door. because they all talented in their own right. They all unique in their own right. LeBron, we never seen a 6'9" guy coming full steam at you. You know, our 6'9" guy was more or less playing with his back toward the basket back in our day. You know, and then what Kobe was able to do to, you know, to emulate what who MJ was, and you know, to study, you know, everything, and to be able to, you know, to take on and become the player he was. I mean, whoa! I mean, that's remarkable within his own right. So those guys are all sitting at the same table in my regard.
Most definitely.
Yeah, we definitely got to appreciate the GOATs while we have them. One question, too, I want to ask you, Muggsy, while we talk about your rookie season as well. What was it like to play with Moses Malone, having him as a vet, first year playing for the Bullets?
It meant the world to me, especially allowed me to play 14 years. You know, I would have played 17 if, you know, but I ain't going to go into that one. I got paid for 17, though. But, yeah, it was Moses, man. What can I say about him, Darryl Walker, and Moses, and rest in peace, because he took me on his wing. You know, he was my vet, and him and Darryl Walker, they was my vet that taught me the ins and outs of what the NBA is all about and how to conduct yourself, how to stay professional, you know, when things are not going well, because the NBA is a day-to-day business. It's about what you can do for me today, not what you did for me last week, and being able to stay ready, staying positive. You know, when things ain't really, like I say, going well, you know, that's when it really stands out. You know, because those words and the confidence that they have in you, and the advice that they have for you, it could make a difference. Because, you know, if I wouldn't have had the advice and took some other advice from something that probably I just wanted to hear as opposed to what I needed to hear, you know, my career probably would be totally different. So, you know, I'm so grateful that I had those guys in my corner to kind of give me that advice. And that was something that I was fortunate enough to pass forward to my younger guys.
You know, you kind of alluded to it for sure, just a couple times in your story and talking about it. But, you know, from what I saw and from, you know, just looking at you from growing up and hearing about you, and then, you know, just growing up in Baltimore and being a short player your whole career, I feel like you have amazing grasp on adversity and biting back against it. Even when you're talking about, you know, the fact that you chose to go to Wake Forest because you knew that it was a good basketball conference, because you wanted that competition. So it's almost like you brought it against yourself because you were hungry for it. And then when we talked about Jordan here recently, you like that matchup. You know, you picking yourself and you're winning that matchup. So talk a little about, you know, how you kind of face adversity and what that looks like as far as you growing up, you know, in basketball, but also in life, period.
Well, you know, adversity, obstacles always seem like it's been my entire journey, you know, and that's something that you understand. And for me, you know, it's never been about quitting. It's never been about, you know, what other thought or whatever every people think. It's about what I want, you know, what I want to accomplish, what I, you know, want to achieve in life. And for me, you know, at the time, basketball, school, and that process, that was my own way of thinking. And I wasn't going to let anybody distract that, you know, regardless of what anyone said or what everyone tried to do. You know, my ultimate goal was to go to school, to get my education, and hopefully put myself in a position where, you know, I get picked up and get looked at it in the lights of as an NBA player, you know, because that was the goal. That was my journey. You know, that was the path that I was on. You know, again, everybody had their own opinion of you or what you should be doing or nobody thought I was going to make the NBA.
Yeah.
You know, anybody had that vision of me doing that, but, you know, I had that vision. I had that thought process, and I understood it. So, and that's why I always tell anyone, you know, no one know who you are. No one know your capabilities and potentials, you know, so they can't be an expert on you. You control your own destiny. And that's something that, you know, resonated very well to me early on, because that's what my mom used to tell me. And I really understood that as I got older, and it really stuck with me. And that's something that it really become true, because you control your own luck. You know, you make your own luck. Yeah. You know, you put yourself in a situation where you can become lucky, you know, in that regards. And there's nothing wrong with being lucky. You know, that's a part of, you know, the hard work that you put in, you know, and the work and that's the results of it. You know, of course, the work that we put in, it we improve our luck, help enhance that luck.
Yo, Muggsy, that's definitely, that's real, and it's beautiful to hear that. Obviously, you betting on yourself, and even when people doubted you, you always had that end goal in mind that you were good enough, you were skilled, and that dream came true. So as always, we tip our hat off to you because you're really the true definition of heart over height. But as we go ahead and shift gears, so we got to break down and dissect your rookie season. So in 1988, the NBA merged. They expanded, and the 4 expansion teams included the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, and of course the Charlotte Hornets, which was a relatively unknown city at the time. So far as those who don't know how the expansion draft works, they were able to teams in the NBA, they were able to protect 8 players on their roster. From there, the remaining players on the roster basically went into the draft pool, and Charlotte Hornets selected you in that 1988 expansion draft. What was that like? What were the thoughts of, you're going back to North Carolina? Obviously, this is a city that really wasn't on the map yet, but, an expansion team with teal and purple jerseys, what was that like? I'm going to play for a new team like this. What was that?
Well, when I first found out the news, I was a little upset, because right after the end of the season, you always, we lost to Detroit in the playoff, and you always have your exit meeting. And after your exit meeting, you was told, we're going to kind of bring some guys in that kind of fit your style. We got other guys, a bunch of guys on the team was more or less on the end of their career. So we want to get to a more up-tempo style. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. But by the time when I left the meeting and got home to my condo, I got a phone call from my agent. And he told me that I'd just been picking up by the Charlotte Hornets. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just left the meeting with the Bullets, and they just told me that they was going to, bring in younger players, so forth, and try to that fit the style that we want to get to. He said, no, well, they went a different direction. I like what he said. Well, welcome to the NBA. And, at the time, I'm like Charlotte, knowing that Charlotte didn't, had no professional team. I knew. He had some experience from being in the Carolina, playing for Wake, being in Charlotte. I knew there was more of a college town. So I had no expectation. When I got there, of course, me and Dell was there at the same time. And we did our little tour, and now we knew Dell from college. And also, of course, from the league, playing against him when he was in Utah, and then went to Cleveland. So it was, I looked at it as an opportunity. That's how I kind of looked at it as another opportunity to put myself on the light to where let these folks know what I'm truly capable of doing. Now an opportunity really could do something, and that's how I looked at it.
Yeah, most definitely. You talked about, and we was going to get into this later, but since you mentioned a couple guys, you mentioned Earl Curington and you mentioned Rex Chapman, but, talk about playing with them and then, that relationship carrying over into, I got to definitely check out the episode with Rex Chapman on 3 League OGs, which we'll get into, but talk about playing with them and, obviously Del Curry as well. That team in Charlotte and really taking the city by storm and cementing yourselves as one of the best Hornets of all time.
Well, it was great to see the city, our team grow, because when we came in 88, as you mentioned, we was expansion team. We were just trying to, make just get through a season, and let the city of Charlotte know that we got a NBA franchise here, and they was excited to have a franchise there. I mean, we probably called the very first game, they came dressed up in tuxedos and gowns, the ladies, and here it is, we playing Cleveland, and they blew us out by 40 points. And as we walking off, the whole entire crowd stood up and gave us a standing ovation. That's when you knew 24,000 just chanting for you, down by 40, lost by 40, but they so excited to have you there. You knew you was in a special city, and they grew with us. Each year we got better, we got players, and then that 3rd, 4th year we started to get some really good players. We got the J.R. Reed, then we got Larry Johnson, and then that took it to a whole new level. Then when we got Alonzo Mourning, we became that team of the '90s, that exciting team, that fun-loving team that people wanted to see. And with Kendall Gill was alongside that as well. Down over there shooting his thing, and Zoe and LJ, Grandma Ma doing their thing. And we had so much excitement. Johnny Newman, and then my boy again, David Wingate, here it is playing with us as well. So that was another blessing. But it was great, seeing the city grow, the team grow, then making the playoff for the first time, with Zoe hitting the shot and then advancing each and every year. That was a stage that standards for this organization. Yeah. So that was awesome. That was awesome seeing how crazy it was back then. And now that, hopefully we get that excitement back with these young fellas.
Yeah. Muggsy, one question I know I got to ask you, man, while we touch on your Charlotte career. So obviously, like you said, the city of Charlotte got to grow with you guys for many reasons, with the popularity of the team improving as far as the record, but at the same time, just like, having something new in the first ever professional team in the city. But one thing I want to ask you is for the 90s kids, me and Rod, this is a childhood favorite for us. And while you were in Charlotte, you and Larry Johnson had the opportunity of going to LA and shooting the movie Space Jam, one of the greatest basketball movies of all time. So you made a nice cameo in that movie, you, Charles Barkley, Sean Bradley. And as I stated, Larry Johnson, what was that like, getting to do things like that in your career? Obviously, the people of Charlotte still embracing you doing things like that. And secondly, I want to ask you, what was it like on set? Because I heard within the Last Dance documentary, there were some crazy pickup games, and they say some of the best pickup games of all time.
Yeah, it was fun doing that movie, man. It really was. The 2.5 weeks while we was there shooting that thing, it was just exciting. You had no idea that it would turn out to be one of the, classic movies of our time right now, but MJ and them did an amazing job. I mean, doing, working on the set. The guys, man, we just had so many moments, opportunity when we was working where, especially one moment where LJ on the set, he decided he wanted to get a haircut. And so we had to shoot early in that morning, and barber wasn't there, so he had to get one of the barbers on set to cut his hair. And here it is, this was a white guy, Caucasian guy, never cut a black man hair before. So Al decided to go and get his cut, and man, he cut Al hair. It was like a bowl cut. Of course, we wound up had to cancel this shoot that morning.
Gotta cancel it.
Yeah. Man, that was one of the funniest times that we had on the sets, and multiple other times. But yeah, it was great, man, just shooting that movie. And then, of course, what you mentioned, the basketball games they had. I couldn't play because I had surgery right after the season, and people didn't realize that in the movie, I was hurt. My knee had just been operated on, and one of the scenes where it looked like I'm moving my shoulders, I was being pulled on a dolly. When the guys hit their head in the hospital going through the scene. So that was, I couldn't play in those pickup games, which I would have loved to play in. Because they created a nice basketball court for MJ. That's what it was during that summertime, hooping and watching the boys, pick up some of the greatest summer pickup games out. And I think one of the other things was being done because Shaq was shooting this movie. Was it Shazam? Yeah. And they was making big fun of it because he had a basketball court just in the parking lot to where it wasn't to the level of MJ. So they kind of made a little fun of that.
That's funny. I didn't even know about that. Shooting around the way. But yeah, that's definitely cool. And, I think, for me, that's probably one of my first introductions to you. Probably not. But, that was definitely cool to see somebody, that was familiar in Space Jam, one of my favorite childhood movies growing up. So kind of pushing back to the Hornets and growing up, and you kind of mentioned the Currys earlier. So talk about, the season, you played 11 seasons with Dell Curry on a couple of different teams. And, so talk about, the Currys and that relationship now and, seeing Steph and Seth play in the NBA and, really changing the game. Because I know on your podcast, you talked about how if the game was how it was today, you'd probably be an all-time assist leader, and Dell Curry would definitely, be up there and, getting some more shots. I think you mentioned like, y'all only took about 3 threes a game or something like that. So talk about that and kind of how the game changed and playing with Dell Curry.
It's awesome seeing Seth and Steph do that thing, man. I mean, for Steph to be a 2-time MVP, unanimous 1 year, I mean, 3 NBA champion. I mean, the accolades just continue. Just for him to be doing his thing is just mind-boggling, you know. And Seth coming along now to getting his shine and getting his, you know, his due process as well. I'm just so proud, man. I'm just so proud of Sonya and Dell for what they've done, not only with the two boys, but with Sadell as well. You know, her husband Damon Lee is doing his thing out there as well, and she did her thing as a volleyball player and our own right at Elon. So I'm just so happy for them and happy for them to continue to be the young men they display on and off the court. You know, they showcase what they all about. Of course, this year Steph has took it to a whole new level and let folks know that, hey, I'm still here. I'm still that guy. And even though I ain't got my sidekick with me, I'm still that guy. And Seth now down there with his father-in-law doing his thing and giving Joel Embiid some space to do able, you know, to operate down there. And here it is, they got one of the best records in the league right now, and that's good. And it's so special to see, you know, them continue to grow, you know, and, you know, off the court, they husbands, you know, their fathers, they philanthropists, you know, they work in the Canada community quite often. Yeah, I mean, it's just a treat to see the joy of what I'm saying from them. And then Dell's still doing his thing with the commentary and shining. So I'm just happy for my boy.
Yeah, I wanted to definitely give Seth a shout out because I saw a stat earlier this week, and you know, hopefully I don't jinx him or it hasn't changed, but I think it was 50.3 from field goal, 50.7 from 3, and 100% from free throw so far this season. So, you know, he's underratedly having one of his best seasons of his career, and you know, doing his thing as far as that shooting. So that's a shooting family for sure.
Oh, without a doubt, you know, the genes, you know, don't fall too far from the tree.
Yeah. And it's crazy, too. I was watching the game the other day when Dale was commentating. He said when he retired, he finished the NBA. He was number 16 on the all-time three-point list. And like you say, you guys didn't shoot many threes back then. And to see Steph already being in the top 3 and he's still in the prime of his career, that's incredible. Like, you know, he really changed the game very, you know, from the three-point shot. He's a pioneer. So it's amazing to see what he did and obviously representing the city of Charlotte as a person on and off the court.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and it's a good treat to see, knowing that they're taking advantage of the game, you know, today's game. You know, that three-point line, that arc, it's been so emphasis in today's game. And if you ain't got them, you know, you need them because threes, they say with the analytics these days, threes pay better than twos. So the more threes you shoot, probably I guess the better off a team are, hopefully, especially when they're making them.
Yeah. Man, Muggsy, you also played with one of the best front courts of all time. And what was it like to play with Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning?
Oh, man, I can't say enough of those guys. I mean, you know, LJ and Zoe were the ultimate professionals in their position. They came to work each and every day. They led on the court, off the court, and early on in their career. You know, they both, you know, one became the rookie of the year and the other, you know, he had to fight with that other big fella that was down in Orlando, you know, so he was running up to Shaq. But they became, you know, again, the player that they envisioned they wanted to be coming into the league. And it started off early on, you know, the confidence that they had, especially with LJ before he hurt his back, the explosiveness he had, the way he was, you know, showing out against the top in the lead, and then with Zoe, you know, came right in at the beginning, relentless, you know, showed that he belonged. And that was something, you know, I never, you know, take that, I always remember those moments because those relationships still, you know, resonate today.
Yeah, most definitely. I think we got Larry Johnson in here as well. So definitely remember those guys and, you know, seeing them in the NBA and seeing, like you said, one of the greatest backcourts of all time. And then, you know, you adding that point guard, you know, that they would need to get their rocks off and play their game. But, you know, talk a little bit about, you know, that that Hornets drip, the pinstripe jerseys, one of the first teams to have a pinstripe jersey. And like you mentioned on your lineup, definitely, one of those top 5 jerseys that, you got to mention when you're talking about NBA drip. So talk about that and, hooping in that.
Well, that was the first thing anybody seen, that Alexander Julian designed those type of uniforms, with the pinstripe, the pleated type of uniforms. And here it is, it was a new team. The colors were something that people didn't envision in the NBA, teal and purple.
Mm-hmm.
And they became such a not only just in the state of Charlotte and beloved in the city, the state of North Carolina, but around the world. You've seen the starter jackets, those teal and purple type of uniforms, my jersey, LJ jersey, all Dell jersey. Every time I travel around the country, you see those type of jerseys, and you knew that, it resonated all the way back in the early days. And so hats off to Alexander Julian for creating such a stylish uniform for the guys. For the organization.
Most definitely.
And Muggs, man, one thing too, I want to ask you. Obviously, to Rod's point and to your point of talking on the jerseys, the drip is still timeless. You're still seeing the players rocking them. Obviously, they brought them back with the Hornets, and it's still like a historic uniform. But one thing I want to ask you as we get ready to close out on the Charlotte Hornets chapter of your career in 1996, man, your last season, before the season starts, you got the NBA draft. You guys selected a high school player out of Philadelphia by the name of Kobe Bryant. What was that like? Draft night, obviously, high school guy, maybe not necessarily the most well-known player around the league for veterans, but to see his career blossom down the line for you guys to select him and trade him for Vlade Divac. But obviously, you guys also had one of the best seasons that year. What was that like to see his growth as a player after you guys traded him?
No, when we drafted, excuse me, I think we drafted Kobe, understand that he wasn't going to come to Charlotte. He was going to go to LA. But everybody knew that Kobe had a lot of hype. Everybody knew that he was up and coming. And, at the time, high school players didn't come in and have a major impact on the league back then. We had a lot of true superstars in the league that was, very relevant into their careers. So a lot of young players didn't really come in and become that guy like that early on. They had to go through their process to become that. LeBron came in. He was one of the few that came in and was able to sustain a certain level of it and able to, continue to progress, each and every year quicker than most. But for the most part of it, we knew that he was going to want to go to LA and be, in that bright lights. His daddy was there, and Kobe, just had that knack of himself and wanted to be, MJ. He had that whole true, vision and that true hunger that I wanted to be that, and he felt that as the best in the league and he wanted to be that. So that's something he studied. He studied, the mentality of it, the makeup, the game, all of it, the mannerism. And boy, he was one of the closest I've ever seen to it. It was like a mirror looking at, at sometimes where he hear him talk, the way he was, he walked at times and the way he conducted. But, after it all said and done, he grew as a man. He grew into his own skin, his father, a husband, a philanthropist, being able to do the things he was able to give back, saying his daughter was able to, start to take that step too. You got to honor that. You got to honor all of it and be, humble to see a guy who meant so much to the game, but meant a lot to others, So me, him, and Gigi, rest in peace.
Yeah, most definitely.
Most
definitely. Rest in power to him and Gigi for sure, and everyone else that lost their lives in that tragic accident. But Muggsy, you talked about, and just kind of segueing into the next part of your next, one of your one of your other cities that, you know, obviously took you in and loved you there. And you alluded to, you know, those young players and getting to experience them grow. And so you got to experience a young Vince Carter and a young T-Mac. And for a lot of people, I think people are, you know, getting to that point where it's crazy. Me and Brad, we're still young. We're only 24, but we're at the point now where, you know, kids might not know T-Mac or they might not know Vince Carter. So talk about playing with them, and then also Charles Oakley, who's also on the podcast with you as well, playing with them and seeing them come in and take the league by storm in Toronto.
Yeah, that was some special time for me. That was on the tail end of my career. Getting the opportunity to go spend some time with T-Mac, as you just alluded to, him and Vince Carter, who was Vince Sanity back then.
Yeah.
It was amazing. You know, those two guys were so talented, and they were the MJ and the Scottie Pippen. You know, if they would have stayed together, who knows what they would have accomplished with each other. But, you know, you understood what they all meant to each other, as well as, you know, who they were as an individual. You know, and Vince, you know, at the time, he just started to become that guy. You know, he couldn't go to the mall. He couldn't, you know, go out like normal because the attention was there. He was in that breath mention of an MJ and that sort of thing. And that went on for, you know, quite some time, for at least 4 or 5 years. And T-Mac was coming into his own. You know, I think he wanted his own shine. And I think not only, it wasn't no selfishness, you know, or anything, or anything such. It was just, when it was time to go, when T-Mac felt like he had opportunity to have his own team, you know, he jumped on it. Going back home in Orlando, Grant Hill at the time was there, who was also someone in their own right, a superstar. But the conversation with T-Mac was more of a, you know, it would be your team. Yep. You know, it'd be you coming in and having that understanding, and, you know, warm weather back in the States. You know, who knows what all came into and then play to make that decision. But, you know, he made that decision, you know, and look what happened. He had a Hall of Fame career right afterwards. And Vince as well, you know, playing 22 seasons. The way he was able to not only transcend from a mega star and then become a mentor coming off the bench, being able to, you know, give love and show how the young players how to do it. And Trae Young, I'm quite sure, really benefiting from Vince's words that he was when he was there. And so that's good. You know, I'm just grateful to be able to be with those guys. And then, of course, with the Oak Tree, you know, and Del Curry again, you know, part of that 11 years, and Antonio Davis and Alvin Williams and D. Brown, Kevin Willis. I mean, it was so many, Mo Pete. I mean, we had a great time there, and sharing that moment, you know, and that's where Elk and our relationship really took off to a whole new level. And was one of the reasons why we was fortunate enough to do the 3 lead OGs, you know, him and myself and Earl Carrington. We got that podcast that we have. We just had Candace Parker's on today. Yeah. So it was a great little chat we had, and along with other guests that we had on with the likes of Ron Harper, Spud West, and Vince. And
I was like, Vince was on there as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Rex Chapman as well. So
y'all have definitely had some heavy hitters, man. And before we get in there, I just got to make the comment, man. T-Mac was a dog, and I think people don't really understand that if it wasn't for injuries, and I mean, you mentioned another guy who had a career that was really taken away from injuries, being in Grant Hill, man. If they could have played together, and I've heard rumors that Tim Duncan was supposed to team up with them in Orlando. That is one of the craziest teams to imagine, because all 3 of them Hall of Fame players and great talents, man, coming into the NBA. So I know that was an amazing experience to play with a young T-Mac and really to see him take off like how he did in Orlando and Houston. But Muggsy, you kind of already spoke about it as Rod introduced it for you. Far as like, post basketball, you had a fantastic career. Early on at the beginning of the show, you were telling us like you still had two other contracts after Toronto, being the Dallas Mavericks and the New York Knicks, but you opted not to play with those two teams. Post basketball career, what has it been like? You've come back to Charlotte, you've been able to do some cool things. So kind of give us a walkthrough of why'd you decide to come back to Charlotte after you wrapped up your NBA career.
Well, Charlotte, I decided to reside in Charlotte because it was a special place. It's mostly where all my ties were. I was in the real estate. Before I left the game, I knew I was going to make a transition, and the transition was going to be, hopefully a smoother transition as opposed to something that you're usually guessing and wondering what's going to be. And Charlotte has always been home base, even though I had a place in Baltimore and I visit quite often and still do because majority of my family's there.
Mm-hmm.
But Charlotte was a place where I can operate and still, have my family to grow and be with them and just, met some great, wonderful relationships in the city of Charlotte. So it was no need for me, to uproot and move anywhere else. Was able to start my foundation. We start back up because I started in 99 and I shut it down in 2001, 2002 when my mom passed away. But when my daughter graduated from Wake Forest in 2009, she kind of poked me in the side to get me to revisit that foundation again, and we was able to start it back up in 2013. And the Muggsy Bogues Family Foundation is something that we really had dear to our hearts. We try to provide less burden for these families, to the parents, and provide scholarship to some of these vocational aspirational kids who had the needs to go to university, mainly not just a 4-year university, but a 2-year university where they can still become engineers, roof, own your own roof business, own your own heat, AC, HVAC company. So we just trying to give them resources in that regard so they can have opportunities where they can go and fulfill their dreams. Because a lot of the, resources are more or less to the IT kids, and 4-year universities trying to reach out to them. So we're trying to give these folks the opportunity to know that we are here, they're here, you got resources for them. And then another program that we started is called, it was a 30-30 program that we had. We were trying to feed 30 families 3 meals a week, because we want to make sure that they, especially during this time, pandemic, it's hard to, to make ends meet, to find food and so forth. So, have some good help out there with some partnershiping that allowed us to be able to serve some of these needs. And that's some of the things that we try to continue to do.
Yeah, Muggsy, from this interview, from the conversation, and then just from your track record here in the city and beyond, I've noticed that you're big on philanthropy. I feel like everyone that you've mentioned, you've noticed their philanthropy and what they've done for their communities. So talk about the importance of philanthropy and giving back and being able to, touch the community and the people around you, if you're blessed to be able to do so.
That's true, and that you just touched on that key word. If you're blessed and able to do so, but I think in some ways, it's not all about you're in your financial state, but just all about what you can do in whatever regards, is volunteering, lending your voice, just trying to help those who need that lending hand, and because it takes a village, it takes a village to try to help raise these kids and help. Give them opportunities where they can feel comfortable and become who they are. It's nothing wrong with asking for help. It's just the means of being able to, if you are in a position, try to go out there and make sure that you make someone's life that much better. I mean, that's what life is all about, helping your neighbors and helping your others, It's not all about selfishness and not about where you are today. It's about where you can do and help others to get to where they need to be. Because again, everybody needs help sometime or another in their life.
Yeah, most definitely. I definitely wanted to commend you on that because that's very admirable. I've noticed that about you, just in my research, but also in this conversation. You definitely were keen on the philanthropy that people did, and like you said, it's not all financial. It can be your voice, it can be your time, it can be just a kind word, just something to be able to give back and help someone else and bring somebody up. So I just wanted to commend you on that. Before we even moved on to anything else. That's very admirable, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I definitely want to echo that from Rod, man. Like, us being two kids from Charlotte, you've definitely been a big impact especially for somebody who, you were just adopted by the city. It's definitely, amazing to see what you do. And at the same time, just, you having that heart full of gold just to want to do it. It's beautiful. And we definitely commend you for it.
Well, I appreciate it. It all stems from moms. It's come from your upbringing. It's always instilled you the values that you was able to obtain as a kid, and the principles and the things that you set off for your family.
Yeah.
So it's nothing that we all do. So I'm no special than you guys or anyone out there that had that same vision and that understanding of how to continue to get back.
Yep. And Muggsy too, man, I know a post-basketball career for you. You've been able to become an ambassador for the Charlotte Hornets, the team that you played for, and had an amazing career, as we mentioned earlier, becoming the all-time leader in assists. What do you think about the Hornets currently? And obviously, too, you were able to be a part of, bringing the energy back with the Hornets when they announced that they got the name back. Talk a little bit about that. What was it like getting the Charlotte Hornets name back in the city? And at the same time, how do you think about the current status with the youth of the team?
Well, that meant everything getting the name back. I mean, that Bobcat just didn't fit.
Wow.
The city of basketball in Charlotte is known for the Hornets, and unfortunately, it went through the trials and tribulations. But again, the ultimate goal that it came back to the original home, and it's back to Charlotte. And then people showed in the first week how much it meant, because I think the merchandise sold within a week more than it did in the whole existence of the Bobcats. So that lets you know how important that name was for not only the city, but for the state of Carolina. And then, I'm so excited about the product that they're putting out there today. You got the young fellas up and coming. It's showing so much excitement, LaMelo and Gordon Hayward and Miles Bridges, human highlight. And you got Big Muggs coming along and shooting this thing like I know he's capable of doing, and PJ Washington and Cody, doing his thing. So I'm loving the team. I'm loving what Mitch Kupchak and MJ and them are able to put out there. And they said it probably a year or two ago, it's a transition. It's been a transition since they got rid of Kemper. It was going to take time to unload some of the other contract with the Marvin Williams and Batum and so forth. So now they was able to do that and make some good and, put themselves in a good position. Got a great draft pick, had a couple draft pick year after year with starting with Miles and PJ Washington, then topping it off with Melo. Things are looking pretty bright in the Hornets organization.
Yeah, most definitely. I wanted to shout out Malik Monk. Ever since that shot he hit against Carolina and Kentucky. He's been on me and Brad's radar, and Brad's been telling me ever since he's been on the Hornets, they need to let that boy hoop. They need to let him fly. And I heard it on, you mentioned it as well on 3 League OGs, how Malik Monk was one of your kind of underrated players that they need to let fly, and that he's getting that opportunity. He had a definitely good game here recently. So I had to shout that. I was like, yeah, Brad has definitely been that guy that was in my ear about Malik Monk. So when you said it on the podcast, I was like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, one thing about the NBA, it takes you 3 to 4 years to truly understand the game. And a majority of the players, that's what it takes. You have some exceptions. You have the exception that's able to kind of prosper a little quicker than others. But the majority of the NBA players, it takes you that 3 or 4 years to really come into your own. And I always understood that about Malik. It's just a matter of him really hearing it, the right stuff, night in and night out, who he can be, and what type of skills he possesses and what he brings to the table. And with a guy like Melo, who's a pass first type of guy, you put yourself in a position where that's all you need to do is catch and shoot.
Yeah.
Get into the areas and do that. And having that understanding, not wanting to be, you ain't got to be nothing else. You ain't got to be the one-on-one trying to, if you have that ability in you, that's a bonus. But the most important thing right now is to focus on being able to be ready to, on that other end, to catch and put that ball in the basket when that young fella find you. And because that's what he's able to do, and get easy transition, get easy baskets. That's fun basketball. Then when you come set up half court and you're able to execute half court wise, you take the game to a whole another dimension. And with the shooters around that young fella, Malik could be that supporting cast, and I really believe this could be the year for him.
Yeah, most definitely. So we talked about, we alluded to it, but we wanted to get into it more. We're both in the podcasting space. So talk a little bit about 3 League OGs. You're on there with Charles Oakley and Earl Curitan, and yourself as well. So talk a little bit about 3 League OGs and how it came about. I know, obviously you played with both of those guys, and, obviously relationships were built. So talk a little bit about, deciding to go ahead and get a podcast.
Well, that all stemmed from the pandemic. Everybody at home, not much to really get involved, can't travel. The bubble, the team was in a bubble. So it was a lot of things that kind of went on, and they kind of made me think about possibly doing a podcast. I really wasn't into it at the beginning. But then it started to make sense, man. We love talking about the game. We love chatting, reminiscing with our friends and so forth. So it just started to make sense for me to say, hey, let me go ahead and put me and my little team together, and the guys that we can kind of chit chat, have some fun with it. And I called Oak Tree up and told Twirl, my boy Earl Curitan, that we going, you're interested in doing. Of course, they right away, they was all in. And then, of course, we had to go get the most attractive young lady in Charlotte, next to my wife. Ashley Strolman. Ashley has done an amazing job hosting the podcast, keeping the balance, and for us, and allow us to be us as well as stay on topic and stay.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that you got that.
Yeah. She's the Molly Grantham of First Take.
Yeah.
Molly Grantham Rose, I should say. First Take. And so Ashley has been on an amazing job with us, and we're so thankful to have her. And man, we just, like I said, we just chatting it up with guys and people and young people that we know, that we admire. And we had, like I said, we had the likes of the Ron Harper, Spud Webbs, Vince Carter, Rex Chapman, and Steve Smith, NFL Hall of Famer Steve Smith. So Smitty came in there and chatted up with us. Then we just had Candace on today, which was a great segment. And we're gonna have some more coming up. Dickie V gonna be going there. And,
gonna be cool.
Yeah, we're gonna have great Dickie V, and we're gonna chit chat up with we got Oz there as well as Avi Letta. So we got some good guests lined up. We're gonna have some fun with it. Just again, like you guys understand it, chatting it up, reminisce, and having fun with it.
Yeah, and that's it. That's a super dope lineup. Like you said, the guests that you guys are anticipating and that you have been able to have on so far, amazing lineup. To Rod's point, so far like an amazing show. So definitely, want to give you your flowers of what you guys have been able to create so far in this new digital age and podcasting space. So that's dope for you guys. Muggsy, we're going to segue before we get out of here to a little more lighthearted part of the show. We're going to go ahead and get into our bad grammar section of the show. So it's just a little fun thing that we like to do with the wordplay of the title of the show. So essentially, I'm gonna go ahead and drop 2 words in the chat for you, and I want to see how well you can pronounce them. We try to trick up the guests of giving them a complicated word. Like we run with that bad grammar to see how well we can pronounce it. And I know that Baltimore accent is stick too. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop them in the chat, and whatever you can see them, go ahead and give that a spin.
Okay, here we go. Was that Bazatine? Bazatine.
Right.
Byzantine.
Yeah, that first one you got it right.
I got it right the first time. Okay.
Okay, so that's one. We 1 for 1. Okay, and then this is gonna be the last one.
Dandelion, dandelion.
So for that one, that second one is the Dalian.
The
The
Dallas.
Dalian. Okay, the Dalian. They had the lean on the end of it.
Yeah, that threw me off too.
The Dalian. Okay, I can see it. Okay.
Yeah, most definitely. So that's a little fun segment we like to call bad grammar. You know, we started off with good taste, we ended off with bad grammar. Before we get up out of here, we had a couple people send in questions, so we're just gonna do quick hitters. Actually, one of the quick hitters we talked about, you know, in the mix of the episode, we asked who your GOAT was, and you kind of pay homage to those players, and like you said, they all got the key to the same elevator and sit at the same table. So shout out to Jordan, shout out to Kobe, and shout out to Bron and whoever else is to come. But the second kind of quick hitter, like, what was the favorite team you played on at any level? So that can be
Yeah, well, I always say high school because you're undefeated, and early on at the time, it was rare. It was rare. It was only just pride and ego was involved, nothing else, and you was doing it with the kids that you grew up with.
Most definitely. And then the second quick hitter question would be the favorite game that you played at any level.
I mean, you have so many games.
Yeah, I knew that might be a little hard.
Yeah. It's hard to say what favorite game. There's a lot of games that stands out.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Good. But yeah, so those were our quick hitter questions. Shout out to people sending those questions in, and trying to learn a little bit more about Muggsy. But I'm gonna pass it over to Brad to get us on out of here, almost.
Yeah, Muggsy, man, it's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to connect with you. As we said, man, we're grateful for opportunity. But before we get out of here, we always like to give the floor to our guests, something that we call free game, just giving them that last word to, give a piece of advice, whether that's basketball, whether that's just being a good person. What advice would you give to any listener out there as they're just going through 2021 and continuing to find themselves? What would you offer as a free piece of game?
Well, continue to stay positive. Positive is the key. 2020 is behind us. 2020 is the new year. Stay optimistic. Continue to treat the people that you like to be treated the same as you want to be treated. Look at your neighbors and like them and love them, respect them. This is a human race as opposed to, whatever race that one decide to want to look and see the divisiveness become, because, we all bleed the same. And we all love the same. So if one can understand that more or less philosophy, we can be in a much better place. And because that's what I'm hoping, and that's what I'm looking forward to each and every day. And that's how I conduct myself, and that's how I expect my kids to go as well.
And that's free game, man, right there, man. That's beautiful, Muggsy. Before we close out, man, where can the listeners enjoy and listen to your podcast? And also, if they want to connect with you in regards to your Muggsy Bogues Foundation, where can they get that information?
Well, let it go to the Muggsy Bogues Family Foundation.org, and you can find all the information about the vision and the mission of what we all about. And if for the podcast and all the platforms, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, I believe, so forth, all that's out there.
Man, appreciate that, Muggsy, man. Rod, man, you got any last takes, man?
Man, no last takes. Muggsy, thank you for coming on, man. I really enjoyed the episode. A lot of free game, a lot of cool stories. So everybody be sure to look out for this episode. And I appreciate everybody for tapping in, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I just want to echo that. It's been a heck of a month, man. Loving the content that we've been able to produce for Black History Month. Muggsy, like we said, this has been an honor to have a Charlotte Hornet legend and ultimately just a great individual, man, and somebody who means a lot to a lot of people beyond the basketball court. So we just want to once again say thank you for coming on the show and being a part of this episode today.
My pleasure, guys. Appreciate you guys having me, man. Keep doing your thing.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate that, man. From Brad Brooks, Rod Carter, Muggsy Bogues, this is Good Taste Bad Grammar, and we're out of here.
Yeah.